Welcome to the Pulse of Story podcast. I am Derek Christopher. Of course, I am here with Mark Travis. And Mark, what an incredible guest we have today. I love this guy. This guy is legendary. It's the legendary Will Akers. Now, Will, for those of you who don't know, and I don't know how you can't know, has been teaching screenwriting for a long time, taught at Vanderbilt University. He created the film program at, I think it was Belmont University, which turned out to be one of Variety's top 30 film schools. This guy has written a best-selling book called Your Screenplay Sucks, 100 Ways to Make It Better. He's written films that have been produced, 3 films that have been produced. He's written for TV. And so he's like all over the place. And now he's got a great program out called keytostorytelling.com that we'll talk about later. But it's really amazing what this guy has put together. It's 10 something hours, 10 or 7 hours, 10 workbooks, Zoom call, office hours. So it's really, really cool. So, Will, good to see you. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
So, Mark and I we're talking back and forth, and we always try to find something that's interesting. I wanted to throw something at you guys to see what you thought. That I had read this the other day. They were talking about Mark Baker, who wrote Tangerine, of course, and just won the Oscar last year for Anora and Best Screenplay. And he said the most essential part of a screenplay is to know your ending before you even begin to write. So Mark Baker writes all these notes, on Post-its and everything. Then he pulls all his notes together. Then he writes an outline. Then he starts writing the script. But he said the essential thing that keeps his story together is the fact that he knows the ending before he even starts. Because he says, if you can wow the audience with a great ending, then everything else sort of will lead up to it. And I was just curious, what do you guys think about that? I mean, from all your experience as major story gurus, do you think that is that the most important part of writing a screenplay?
Well, I'm going to defer to Will first. I have some thoughts on it, but I'd love to hear what, as you say, the brilliant Will Akers, William Akers has to say.
What do I have? Let's see. What do I think? I think it's really great if you know your ending. That's for sure. I've known the ending on the things that I've written, including a novel. It gives you a place to go to. And so you know where you're heading. The guy that wrote Little Miss Sunshine, Michael Arndt, he won't write without knowing his ending. And he knew the ending of that movie, which is with the whole family on that stage together. He knew that. That's where they were going to end up. And it just keeps you on track. It's so nice not to have to wander around hoping to figure out what you're going to do. I'm a big fan of outlining, and so part of outlining is knowing what the ending is.
Now, do you think does it stifle creativity at all? That if you're boxed into what you think the ending should be, does that stifle your creativity or does it open up your creativity?
Well, they repealed the law some years ago that makes you unable to change your ending while you're writing. So that's really no longer a problem.
Thank God. Thank God.
It led to a lot of angst.
Yeah.
I don't think it stifles your creativity at all if you know where you're going. But you can always change it. I mean, if you decide, ooh, I made a mistake, you go, whoops, and then you change it to something else. But at least get going.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the creativity part, Eric, I think, I'm primarily a director, but I write a lot. Knowing the ending, I think, is really nice. And if I know the ending, I know when I'm off track.
Yeah.
And absolutely. I know that maybe being on track, I say, oh, no, this is good. This is good. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here. But now my job is to figure out how to get back towards my ending. But I think it creates a more interesting journey if I know I've veered off, way off.
Yeah.
But have to come back somehow, then it becomes a more interesting journey.
I mean,
so I think knowing the ending doesn't give you just one alley to go down.
No, it's to me, it's guardrails. The ending, knowing the ending is guardrails. You can go anywhere you want to on a very wide road, but you're not going to fall off in a chasm somewhere.
Yeah.
And again, you can always change it if you need to.
But now, Will, you've written for TV, so if you're writing, did they know the ending of Breaking Bad when they started Breaking Bad? When you have something that goes 6, 7, 10 seasons.
He did.
I think
he did know
that one from the get-go.
It's going from Mr. Chips to Scarface.
Bingo.
Yeah.
There's the beginning, there's the ending.
And they
Five
sold
years.
that pitch on the fact that he was going to have an arc, which I think was the first time that had ever happened. But they knew he was going to turn bad when they started.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's interesting. Then is knowing your ending more important, even more important in television, because you need to create that arc over a certain number of seasons.
Yeah, but TV is long. There are a lot of
Yeah,
episodes, and you may and it's a living creature, unlike a feature film. You edit a feature film in the editing room, you have test screenings, and then you send it out, and
yeah.
then that's it. You were right or you were wrong about every decision you made. In television, you're hearing from the audience every single week, and your main character, I can't think of an example, the person you thought was the main character a year later may not be the main character. The television
Ah, yeah, yeah,
can change because it's long lived and it's happening every season. And so
yeah.
you can really find out, oh, this is what our show is. Whoops, we didn't know, but here we go. We're gonna follow this path, and it's gonna lead us down to way more money.
Hmm. One of my favorite stories about that, I have a question about screenplays and some that you really admire, Will, but in my work as a director, I pick a screenplay and we work on that with in terms of directing scenes. And it's a screenplay for American Beauty. And I don't know if you've read the original screenplay. Okay, because I'm just going to tell you the original screenplay, it's a murder mystery. It starts out in a courtroom after what's his name? Lester Burnham is dead, and they're trying to figure out who killed him. And in the courtroom, the young boy from next door is being accused of the murder because he said they have on tape, "Do you want me to kill him?" Which he says to the daughter. She says, "Yes, would you please?" It's a murder mystery. From my knowledge of that film, this getting back to your point, Will, they shot the whole film, everything, and it wasn't working. And they realized they had the wrong story. That they, if you remember at the beginning, the scenes going over the neighborhood, he says, "This is my neighborhood." Those are plates they shot because the opening of the original is he's flying like Superman because he's dead over the. And they said, well, let's not do that. Let's get rid of that. And eventually, let's get rid of the courtroom scenes. Started in the courtroom, ended in the courtroom. They got rid of all of that and made it the story of Lester Burnham and not the story of who killed Elizabeth. So this is to your point. The reason I like this, and there are a lot of other films like this, that the best minds and the best writers and directors sometimes don't are actually creating something better than they know that they have.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You
in
find out
post-production,
as you go
your
along.
job is to discover and they made a brilliant film out of what was a different film.
And your job is to listen to the people around you.
Yeah,
And so if that's a good idea, that's better than my idea. Let me do that. What
yeah.
a great
Yeah.
thing. Okay. It's difficult to find people sometimes who want to listen. They just kind of want
Well,
to
Yeah.
do what they want to do.
well, how much of the storytelling then is from the screenwriter, and how much is it from the director, and how much is it from the editor? Like in Mark Baker's case, he's the writer, he's the editor, and he's the director.
Who
Hmm.
do I not? I don't advise people to do that, not at least at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because
Why?
you've got a writer, let's say you could a writer director, which you see a lot.
Yeah.
You need someone who can yell at you,
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
really yell at you, but at least speak to you so you'll listen. Because if you're in the editing room and you're your own editor and you haven't edited a bunch of movies, you can talk yourself into anything.
Yeah.
You can't it's just insane, I think. I mean, you really need someone to talk to you that you can go back and forth with that you who
Hmm.
admire. And Quentin Tarantino's longtime editor died. And on, I think, just before The Hateful Eight, and all of a sudden there wasn't anybody to tell him, hey, that's too much dialogue.
Yeah. Well, Mark, I mean,
Which
that's
brings up one of my questions. Um, because you're talking about someone who's say a writer who positions themselves as writer, director, editor. And their argument, I've run into this, I know this story so well, nobody else knows it as well as I do. And right away, that's a red flag for me. But um, a writer director who writes a first draft and says, okay, we're ready to go into production.
I've seen
Either,
that.
yeah. And and in my position, because I come in as a consultant to the director, boy, I got a tough job. I got a tough job to help that person see the flaws, the problems, or the opportunities in their own script, which they are so married to. And even with one director, he came in to me with first draft, was ready to direct it, and he had 3 books of storyboards. The whole thing was storyboarded already.
Oh boy.
And it was horrendous, and that. So my question to you, Will, because you deal with a lot of writers, way more than I do. How do you deal with someone who is so convinced that what they've written, which they may feel very passionate about, and maybe it's autobiographical or based on a
Which
true
makes
life
it
experience, how do you get them to step back and look at it objectively?
so sometimes you fail. You just try to
Yeah.
point out, several times, my kind of number is three. I'll tell you I'm right and you're wrong 3 times, and then after that, I'm going to give up, and you'll find out later.
Hmm.
And the autobiographical thing, this happened to me, and it was really dramatic when it happened to me. That doesn't mean it's a story, just because
Right.
it was exciting when it happened to you. And it is very difficult to convince people to change what happened. I see it constantly. Oh, this is what happened, and it was amazing. Well, the other thing is you don't owe anything to history. Your job as the writer is to create a story that works, not
Hmm.
recreating, repeating, retelling, not at all history. You need to tell a story that works. And if it doesn't work, it ain't going to work.
Well, this reminds me of Bohemian Rhapsody because, Sacha Baron Cohen was originally attached to star in it, Borat.
Hmm.
And he said that the band came to him. They were very excited that he was going to be Freddie Mercury. And they said, "We're so excited about this story, especially what happens in the middle." And he said, "Well, what happens in the middle?" He said, "Oh, Freddie Mercury dies." And he goes, "That happens in the middle?" And he goes, "Well, what happens in the other half of the movie?" He says, "Oh, that's when the band gets back together and we go on to big triumph without Freddie and everything is great." And Sacha Baron Cohen, then he said, "I don't want to be a part of this." He goes, Freddie Mercury dying is your main point of the film. That's your
Hmm.
climax. But to these guys, it was just they didn't get it.
No. I mean, yeah, it's hard. I mean, some people are really good about receiving notes, and some people are not. And you can't make them listen. You just can present your idea and say, this is why I think what I think. This is what my experience is, and this is why I think you're going down the wrong road. Can I help you? And then, you know, I don't know what you do when they don't listen. They just don't listen.
Yeah. And my
It doesn't happen
guess
that
is,
it doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. It also happens with real life stories.
What about
yeah.
when writers don't know when to stop? I mean, I used to talk to writers at Story Expo all the time, and they would come back year after year after year, and they were still working on the same screenplay. And they said,
Some
it's
people
just,
work on the same screenplay forever
yeah,
and thinking that's going to work, and that's the recipe for sadness, I think.
yeah.
I think you're better off trying it, and if it doesn't work, start another one. If that one doesn't work, start another one, and then maybe now you're a better writer, go back to the first one and rework it. Because that's one great thing about writing, you improve, you get better over time. The more things you write, the better you're going to get. And
Yeah.
so the next movie will be better than the one that came before. And
Well, Will, one of the things you've talked about a lot is writer's block. Do you think that when somebody gets stuck on wanting to just do one story and one screenplay, that maybe a version or a variation of writer's block? And how do you get past that idea that this is the only thing that I know?
this is something I just kind of came across recently is the idea that I don't want to change, and that might be exactly an example, because I don't know if I don't want to change this scene. I don't want to change this line of dialogue. I don't want to change my entire story or write a different one because they don't think they can come up with something better. And
Ah, yeah.
the fact is that you can come up with something better if you just sit down and pound it hard enough and sit there and think and make lists and brainstorm and write it all down. All of a sudden, you're going to come up with a good idea, a
so
better idea. Because
so
you came
Will,
up with this one that was good, you can come up
mhm.
with one.
Now, if you're talking now, you're talking about the same story, a rewrite of the same story, or just a whole new script.
Either way, if you're stuck on one idea and one story for
Hmm.
way too long, it may be because you think you can't top it. Make a better one. If you're stuck on this particular scene and you or this line of dialogue all the way down to just one line of dialogue, it may be because you're afraid that you can't do better. But I think you can if you just keep working at it.
Yeah, because my experience with writers that are stuck on what they've written, one screenplay, not moving on to another one,
Hmm.
is, and no, 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 this is going to be great. And I'm guessing, I'm hoping that I'm seeing it the way you're seeing it. I say I see more in your story than there's more to it.
Hmm.
And a lot of writers, my experience, and mine, of course, in my situation, many times it's director writers, are afraid to look further or afraid to go deeper into this. And all I'm saying is there's more in your story. You're missing some great stuff. There's more in this
Hmm.
relationship. There's more in this scene
Right.
than you're putting on the page. There's more potential in this scene. And
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
not, and to me, it's not changing the scene. It's just clarifying the scene, clarifying
Making
what's
it
pop.
better.
Yeah, exactly. And
I mean, if you
there's
cut if you
resistance
cut,
because I think it's fear.
yeah,
It's fear.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
if you cut the scene in half and it's twice as good as it was before,
Yeah.
hooray.
Hmm.
Well, here, building on both of your strengths, can a great script be made into a shitty film by a bad director? And can a shitty script be made into a
No.
great film by a good director?
Yeah, well, you can make it into a better film. I don't know if you can make a bad script into a great film, but you could
Yeah.
certainly improve it. But you can, you can ruin something. Yes, absolutely.
Because Mark, I would imagine too that as a director, that if a director has a certain vision and he's so closed off or she's so closed off to what that vision is that they're looking through horse blinders, that's just as bad as a writer that doesn't want to cut a particular scene or line of dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same thing. And the horse blinders is a good, metaphor for it because there is that myopic vision that they can't see what's possible.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's besides frustrating for me, it's very sad because I see they're really struggling against themselves. They're
Yeah.
really fighting against themselves. And I'm saying you have, and many times, I mean, I've used that phrase, which I've heard before, which is great. And I use it sometimes. I said, you're a better writer than this. Really?
Yeah.
Yes, you are. In other words, if I can see that they are better than what they're doing, that usually, I'm trying to find tricks or way. This is my whole
Right.
book on bag of tricks of ways of getting past their own
Hmm.
resistance. Yet, getting back to something you said a little earlier, Will, and this is relates to some experiences I've had working with directors, working with them, consulting on it, blah, blah, blah. They go on, they make the film. I see the film, finished film. Everything that I was saying could possibly happen that wasn't going to work is in there. You can see it. Now, in other words, not now, that relationship doesn't work as well. That you left that character out for too long. We've forgotten who that was, but all these things that many times that I would say, it's in there, which is painful for me. And it's
Sure.
really painful is when critics bring it up. Here's the problem with this film.
Oops.
And the critic brings up the exact same thing I was mentioning months ago. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
You
sort of
can,
gratifying for me, but it's not really gratifying
no,
because
no, it's
I want
sad.
the film to work well.
Sad is the right
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
You mentioned storyboards earlier.
yeah,
And they brought the whole thing, they storyboarded before they'd rehearsed the actors, before they'd been on the
right.
set with the actors to see what they're going to do. And I think storyboards are a great idea, but don't bring them out the day of the shoot. Just have them there in case you can't think anything else that day and figure out what the actors, the
Yeah,
characters, how they're going to want to move, and then deal with it once you see what they want to bring to the table.
yeah.
Because,
Or even
um,
going back a little further, storyboards before you, and I'm speaking to that director, writer, are really clear about what this scene is about. Really, have you really looked at the scene that you wrote? And the best way to do that is bring in some actors, maybe not the actors who are going to do it, and to start playing with it, rehearsing it, and see, get it to work. Because the storyboard is just the visual communication of an event. That's all it is.
Yeah.
But if the event itself, um, Mark Rydell, who I worked with for many years, says filmmaking is easy. You create an event, you film the event, and then you cut it together into another event, and then you got it. He says, but if the event you create, he said, isn't worth watching, you're dead.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. So many times what I run into in terms of directing, and I'm guessing you do in writing, what they imagine in their head, how it's going to play is what's convincing them that it's okay.
Oh, and they'll cast the wrong actor.
Hmm.
This actor that they cast looks like who they thought they should look like, as opposed to they're the best actor. I mean, I always,
Hmm.
if you got a great actor, rewrite the part a little bit to fit the best actor, because
Yeah.
that's what you want is great acting, because the actors will bring so much to the table beyond
Hmm.
what you thought of in the hotel room coming up with the storyboards
Yeah.
or what you thought up at home when you're writing it up in the middle of the night over time, getting it written. An
Hmm.
actor can, I mean, I always urge my students and clients have a table read. Find out what
Yeah.
actors think about your
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
Find out what actors think about your dialogue when there's no pressure to get it done because we're shooting tomorrow. That's a little bit late.
Well,
Yeah. Well,
Will, would
I
you
would
agree?
suggest the table read, which we did. This is what we did on Bronx Tale. We did, I don't know, 6 or 7 table reads while we were writing the screenplay.
How
And then we
wonderful.
and then
Yeah.
go back and we bring in really good actors, not and some of them ended up in the movie. That doesn't matter. But to do that table read, to hear it, get their feedback, and go back to writing. And
It's
that was
heaven.
over a period of months. And so the table reads were very, very valuable.
But going a step beyond that, I also see people now saying that why don't you take because cameras are so cheap and it's so easy to edit now. Why don't you take 5 or 10 pages of your screenplay and actually have actors come and act it out? It's sort
Hmm.
of just a living version of the table read.
Yeah,
But at least visually you see it.
when I was still running the department at Belmont, I required in one of the classes that because they would write a script for a 5-page script one semester and then shoot it the next semester.
Yeah.
And so the end of the semester, when they're writing the script, I said, find your location you're going to use next semester and say, can we come here and shoot for one day? Use your phone, get good sound, don't worry about lighting, and shoot your movie
Yeah.
just with the
Hmm.
phone, have a tripod if you can, and shoot your whole movie. Don't do multiple takes. Again, don't worry about lighting because you're not trying to get it lit right. You're not worrying about dolly moves. You're worrying about your dialogue and how it's going to work and how your story's going to work, and then
Good.
come together and see. And then next semester, you've already made a previs basically for no money hardly because the
Yeah.
phone's it looks great and it
Hmm.
sounds good. And so now you can look and you go, "Whoo, I made a mistake here." And then you can change it. I think it's a great way to do things
Yeah.
because
Now,
it's
Will, did you find that that changed how they approached the story? Did actually visualizing it that way, did that change how they approached it,
so
their
they would
screenplay?
rewrite it over Christmas is what they would
Yeah.
do because they
Ah,
realized my story didn't work. I thought it was going to work, and now I've
ah.
mercifully found
That's
out
good.
no
Yeah, it's great.
saves.
I got a little story to this. Something years ago, Jeff Bridges told me, and we were talking about the rehearsal process. And he's from theater, and I'm from theater. We all love the rehearsal. And he told me about the making of Tucker. Remember the film Tucker
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
with Coppola? And he said they were working on that, and they were working on sound stages and without the full sets, but close to it. And they were going through the rehearsal process. Then Francis Ford Coppola says, "Okay, now we're going to go through the whole film in sequence. We're going to go through scene by scene, just in rehearsing." And I have cameras, and he had, because he was into a lot of video, he had a lot of video cameras, and they just
Hmm.
went through and did scene by scene by scene, and there were cameras there shooting just what you're saying, not 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 shooting at single camera, not worried about that, just to capture it. He said at the end of that, it took about a week or 2 weeks to do that. At the end of it, he said he was handed a videotape by Coppola. Everybody was. Here's the movie. And he said he went home and he watched. He saw the whole movie. The actor saw it.
Yeah.
He said, now I could see what Coppola was doing. Now I could see where it was going. Now, oh, I get it. And then Coppola says, okay, now we need to do that again, but with better cameras this time,
Yeah.
which is the production. But that idea of taking everybody through the film, seeing the film, everybody experiencing the film,
Hmm.
risk-free, which is what you're talking about. Well, I think, and now with, yes, with iPhones and all that, you can do anything, just
Right.
about
Oh, yeah.
anything.
The stakes are
Beautiful.
extraordinarily low and the reward is extraordinarily high.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The
Will,
ability
what
to rewrite after you've seen it is you don't get to do that in a
Yeah.
movie. You don't do that. It goes out and you go, well, I should have rewritten that.
Which
Will from your
brings me to one little thing. Listening, because one of your things about is about listening, and you talk about that, which I think is, and we're talking about do they, those writer directors out there, listen to us at all, or do they listen to you But what you're really doing there, Will, which I think is brilliant, listen to your story.
yeah.
Don't
Mhm.
listen to me. Listen to the story. In other words, by recording the story, now they're listening to what they created. They can't,
Mhm. Yeah.
you're not saying anything. The story, and they'll probably see even moments in there that are working better than they thought they were going to work. Who knows? But they're listening to the story.
Will, what do you see as the biggest difference from, I mean, from all the consultations you've done, from like, let's say, a first-time writer to an experienced writer?
Mhm.
What is the biggest story hole or story problem you see in both of those sets of writers?
Well, I would say, I mean, the general overall thing is they start the story way too early and there's too much setup in the first act.
Mm.
And you see that a lot where they're
Hmm.
explaining it and telling us how we got here and all that. Just start with the person with the problem and then we'll learn later how we got.
Ah, okay.
That I see a lot.
Yeah. Do you see that in both new writers and experienced writers, or?
Experienced writers make all kinds of mistakes too.
Yeah.
But I see everything with everybody, but yeah, more mistakes with beginning writers, certainly.
Yeah.
So, and that, do you apply that same to just a scene? You started too early. You can start
Sure.
deeper into the scene.
Yeah, back to Tarantino. He said somewhere early on, he said, cut the first two lines of dialogue from your scene, cut the last two lines of dialogue from your scene. It's amazing. And this happens to me as a writer. You get a flywheel in you and it gets going and gets going. You just kind of keep
Hmm.
typing and then you finally stop and you go, well, the scene ended four lines of dialogue ago, right there.
Hmm.
That's where you cut out. And the same thing starts with the beginning of a scene that you get your wheels rolling. Nobody wants to watch that. They want to watch it happening, not
Yeah.
beginning to think about starting contemplating happening.
So, do you think the writer or some writers, seasoned or professional, doesn't matter, or beginning, need to write all that other material just to get it out of their system? In other words, need to write that all that setup to get into it. And even though,
Everybody's writing process is different. And one of the hard things to convince people is that your writing process, if it works for you, that's great. Don't
Yeah.
sit there and think I'm doing it wrong because so and so else does it wrong. So if you need to get your flywheel engine, all that going by writing dialogue that you're going to cut later, great. That's fine.
hmm
If it works for you, that means it works. You've got to be
hmm
open to suggestions and you don't want to be rigid about what you're doing all the time. But if your system works, man, that's the best way to write a screenplay in the world.
hmm
See, but I wonder maybe if writing that much setup isn't necessarily a bad thing if you know how to edit it out later in a rewrite.
Yeah, that's it. It's fine to write it if you cut it later because you didn't need it. That's important.
Yeah.
If you write it and then you keep it just because you wrote it and won't
Yeah.
cut it because it's there, that's a problem. But it's I love cutting stuff. And all of like
Yeah.
you got dialogue here and then more dialogue here and then dialogue here and you cut this in the middle and these two things connect and all of a sudden it's twice as good as it was before. I love doing that.
Yeah.
hmm
Takes experience to see the fact that you can do that, but it's really wonderful.
But you
Yeah.
need to do the other stuff first. In other words, you get a lot of stuff because I know sometimes when I'm writing, I need to get the characters talking so I know who I need. It's almost, I guess, in my mind, I'm allowing the characters to improvise for a while.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, that's a great way to do it. There's a guy he writes about the best dialogue in the world. I've lost his name. I probably lost the name of the movie he wrote. Playing by Heart. I'll come up with his name in a minute. That he writes such good dialogue. He hates to write. He
Yeah.
hates to write. And he walks up and down the beach. That's how he thinks about his stories. And Playing by Heart is a mother, father, and then they have three children, and all those stories weave together. So he thought about the stories and the characters, and he thought about each story for months, walking up and down
Yeah.
the beach. And then one day he thought, okay, I've done it enough. He walked inside and he wrote for 8 straight days
Hmm.
Wow.
and then wrote the whole thing. But he wrote it the mother father story. He said this daughter's story, that daughter's story, that daughter's story, and then he cut them up and put them all together, and there was his movie.
Well, you look at
Wow.
creative process. Look at the late great John Hughes. I mean, he was prolific and wrote, 16 Candles, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And he said that his process of writing, that he would just go outside and he would go for a walk and he would just write details of every little thing that he saw. And he used that technique to learn how to write better, to be able to describe things more, to write better dialogue.
Hmm.
For some reason, that made him be able to write. And then when he wrote a screenplay, he would knock it out in a couple weeks.
Hmm. I would tell my clients always, if you can go to a location that, like if you're going to write a scene in a coffee shop, go to a coffee shop and sit there and watch what goes on for a
There
while.
you go.
What people say, what does it feel like? What
Yeah,
happens in a different kind of coffee shop than the one you went to last week? I mean, any way you want to do it, any way you can get the words on the page, that works.
I love that. I love that idea of going to the location where your movie you think should be set and absorbing that and seeing how that plays into what you write.
I mean, it's research,
Yeah, absolutely.
and you get to drink coffee, and that's good.
Yeah,
Research is, I think people get nervous about calling people on the phone and saying, "Can I come interview you about my story idea?" I think research is incredibly helpful
yeah,
as long as, and there's a caveat to that, is the research, if you're at the beginning and you're using it to procrastinate, that's a problem.
right.
If
Yeah,
you do too much research without knowing what your story idea is, it can clog up the wheels in your brain and you won't be able to write. And so too much research can clog you up, and that's a real problem. But once you know your story, basically,
yeah,
then you know I'm not going to have to do any research about laundries. It's all going to be in a coffee shop. So you don't have to do any of that research that you thought you might have at the beginning. And so you can just do pointed research that's aiming at what you need to know to write this scene or about this character. I think research, if you know your story and you know kind of what you want to get done, and that way you'll know what you need to know.
yeah.
Mhm.
I can tell when someone has no idea what their character does for a living.
Yeah.
And the thing, and I think this is in Your Screenplay Sucks, my book, is when they write that the person is like a real estate agent and they're in their office shuffling papers. They,
Yeah.
they don't know what a real estate agent does. They just have them in
Right.
was doing officey type things, real estate agent working type things, and
Mhm.
they don't know, and that's not good.
How much of writer's block do you think is actually just procrastination?
Well, a lot of it is. I mean, that's what research you can go. It's way more fun to interview helicopter pilots than
Yeah.
it is to like fix this story idea or fix this scene.
Yeah.
So research can be procrastination, but writer's block is procrastination. Everybody says, the writer who isn't getting his work done has got the cleanest apartment in Manhattan because he just
Yeah.
in your apartment instead of writing. And the
Yeah.
writer's block, I think part of it is the fear, as I said earlier, that it ain't going to work, but you got to
Right.
fight through that. And then another part of writer's block, in a way, is the fear of perfection, which is a big problem. Is this won't be perfect, so I'm going to rewrite it, or it won't be perfect, so I can't start writing it. And then
Yeah.
I would say, in your life up to now, what have you ever done that was perfect? Name me one thing. And well, there's
Yeah.
nothing. And so this won't be perfect either. So get with it. It just has to be good enough. It doesn't have, you can't go for perfection, otherwise you'll never finish, which is really
Well,
sad and hard.
Nobody knows what perfection is anyway, even. So I've had another little angle on this in terms of working with writers, Will, and they're writing screenplays. And it's, as we all know, heavily a visual medium when it's done,
Hmm.
visual and sound. But on the screenplay, there is no, I mean, there can be dialogue, there can be the text about what we see, and all of that. How
without a doubt.
how do you work with writers in terms of whether it's visually what we're seeing, the staging of a scene, all the stuff that will be on the screen that they imagine is going to be on the screen that really isn't on we can't see it on the page. You have to describe it. But that's a big part of it, big part of their story.
Well, one thing I see a lot, which our screenwriting course, Screenwriting Essentials, talks about not doing, is what I call novelistic writing, which is where you're
Ah,
describing what's in their head.
yeah,
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, Toby remembers his wonderful cat, Julia. Well,
Yeah.
we can't see that in a frame. And so you have to learn to write what the camera can photograph. Now, you can write in a line of action description what an actor feels if the camera can capture that in a performance. But the camera cannot capture me remembering, thinking about what I want for dinner.
yeah,
Right.
That I see that a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's important not to do. Writing visually is I'm keep going back to Tarantino. There's a screenplay called Hard Times that Walter Hill wrote eons ago, and it has got almost no words. It's amazing. I mean, the page is like a blank white page with a haiku running down the left column, and Tarantino, who thought scripts were terrible, he saw that one, and every single thing in it is described in visual terms. This is what you will see. And he didn't
right.
take much time to do it, and it's a fantastic screenplay. And it's very simple. And I would have my students at the university write that way because you have far less words on the page, which is
Yeah,
for
Hmm.
somebody to read. Somebody's got to pick up a script and you got 75 words on a page or you got 400 words on a page. Which one are they going to go for?
yeah. Can we just touch on
Interesting.
screenwriting essentials for a second? So you created this course,
Mhm.
Keys to Storytelling, Screenwriting Essentials. What was the main impetus of wanting to get that out there? Was it a legacy project? Was it something that, all your years of experience you wanted to put
No,
out there to help writers?
we wanted to make money. That's why we did it.
There you go.
We
That'll
were
work.
not serving mankind. We
Yeah.
were trying to make money.
Yeah.
The company name is Key, Key, and the word two, not the number two. It's Key, two, Key to Storytelling,
Yeah.
and .com. And the screenwriting course is called Screenwriting Essentials. And it's really been interesting how much people have liked it that have taken it, how much they learned. It's their
Yeah.
10 lessons going from idea to character, world building, structure, outlining, on and on scenes. And then you finally start writing your script on about lesson number 7. You've got all this prep work that you do to get ready. And then it's like the rodeo gate opens and out you go is to write
Right.
the script. And I spend a lot of time in the course talking about what we call physical writing, which is getting the words on the page. That's why I like Walter Hill because there's so few words, but he says everything he needs to say to make the point.
Yeah.
And I've got rubber stamps that I used when I was teaching with a rubber stamp on their page. There are 11 most common mistakes that students made. I thought I'm tired of writing less detail. So I just got a rubber stamp that said less detail. And
Yeah.
that's a problem is people overwrite in action description. And it's so anyway, that's one part of the course is I spend a lot of time talking about how you write a sentence. And that's one part of my book is how you write a sentence and get it right because there's a reason for it. When they pick up your script to decide to start reading it, they cannot tell on page 1, 2, and 3 if you know anything about character development. They can't tell if you know anything about plotting. They can tell if you can write a sentence. They
Right.
instantly. And I've got former students that are in development now and producers that I know. They know at the end of page 1 if you can write or not. And that if you can't write, it's really scary to them. They may not get to page 3 because they
Yeah.
don't have to read the whole thing. And so part of Screenwriting Essentials, that part of it is make sure that it looks good and your dialogue is tight and your action description is clean and concise and really makes sense. And
Yeah.
that's part of it. I'm very happy with the course. When my business partner was a student of mine, her name's Hillary, and she came to me and said, "Let's go into business together." When she knew I was retiring from teaching, and so we wrote it together. then she came to town and we shot it, which is me talking. And then she's covering up my face with all kinds of graphics and interesting, useful information. And then
Yeah.
she then sent it to me to look at it to see what I needed to tweak in the editing. And I'm watching it and I wrote it with her and I'm watching it going, and I'm calling her on the phone saying, this is really good. Wow. We've really
You
got
you bought it yourself.
yeah, well, listen, I do. There's some stuff in there that I print, and when I'm working on a screenplay, I go straight to the literature from the course and do what
Yeah.
I thought I'm teaching other people to do because it's helpful to me.
Yeah.
So that's Screenwriting Essentials. It's been great fun.
Well, and
And
I love that you have workbooks, and I love that you have assignments, and I love that you have Zoom office hours. I mean, that's all very, very collaborative, and it's really. I think it also keeps people on track when they know that they're being tracked.
yeah, and one thing we have in each lesson is common mistakes of this thing. So common dialogue mistakes, common structure mistakes. That's in there all over everywhere. Where there's
Yeah.
an outlining thing, obviously common mistakes in outlining. Where we got three different kinds of outlines that you have to write. You write outline number one, then you write the different kind of outline, and then another different outline. And then after you've done all of that, then you can start working on scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been
That's
fun. People have liked the course, and that's been great. And the other thing we offer is script notes. Is if you
yeah.
pay us money, we will give you notes on your script, and they are detailed and exhaustive and incredibly helpful. Over and over again, professionals or beginners, they say these are the best notes I've ever gotten, and
Wow.
that's been really gratifying to me.
Yeah. And do you find that they take your script notes into account, or it goes back to are they so in love with their story and their scenes that there's resistance to it?
Well, you pay me $1,700 to critique your script, you're going to listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Touche.
mean, it's expensive, and when it's expensive, people have a tendency to pay attention.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
um, but I've been doing script notes for decades.
Yeah.
I had one client that I thought really was angry at me because she seemed to be disagreeing, and this was 15 years ago. And literally a month ago, I had lunch with a friend of hers, and she said she loved your notes. She said they were so helpful. I thought, okay, great. No dissatisfied customers, not one. So that was good.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, I want to ask you a question. You've been following this Wizard of Oz thing at Sphere in Las Vegas.
I know that it exists, but no, I don't follow much because I don't watch the news and I'm not on social media. I'm just alone in a cave.
If you're, so Mark and I have talked about this. So, the Sphere, the screen is 5 football fields
Yeah,
wide,
I can't wait to
huge.
go.
And what's happening is, I mean, Mark has seen the story that Sunday Morning did, and I've seen it, and it looks amazing. But now you've got purists, quote unquote, that say that they're really sort of ruining the storytelling of Wizard of Oz because they've cut it down to 75 minutes. They've added scenes with AI, not added scenes, they've added to the scenes
Did
with AI.
did they pay the rights holders money to do this?
It's through Warner Brothers. Yes, it's
Then
an
yes,
official.
then they paid for the right, that's the correct word, but they
Yeah,
paid for the privilege to do what they wanted to do.
yeah.
If you complain about it because yeah, that is none of your business what they do with their money.
That's like complaining because someone took a 30-year-old Mercedes and refurbished it.
Right.
Yeah,
You
and
can go
painted it
whole,
pink.
yeah, well,
Well,
why
okay,
not?
well, it was their Mercedes. They can do
Yeah,
whatever they
but
want to with
also
it.
with The Wizard of Oz, you can go back and watch the original. It has not been erased.
Yeah,
Well,
no, they
and
did. They haven't changed it at all. I loved, what was it? Wicked? Was that the movie that just came out?
yeah,
Hmm.
They had
yeah,
the second one come out. I loved every minute of it.
yeah,
It was fantastic. That was different.
yeah.
That was the Wizard of Oz. It was kind of like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
I thought it was great storytelling and incredibly enjoyable.
Well, Mark, what I thought was interesting too, and we've talked about this before, was the fact that they said instead of looking at it as a piece of film history, look at it as a Disneyland ride. You're going to Sphere and you're watching this movie, and when the tornado comes, they have wind machines and throwing leaves, and they've got smell and they got vibrating seats. You're not going to see, The Godfather at some film house. You're going for a
It's a
spectacle.
ride. Yeah,
It's a ride. It's
I'll tell
totally a
you
ride.
my Wizard of Oz story, and
Yeah.
this was great. It's vaguely relates. is when I was in film school, they brought the print down. Was it MGM? I can't remember. Anyway,
Yeah,
they
MGM was the original. Yeah.
so they brought the print down and they showed it, and Margaret Hamilton and I think it was Ray Bolger came down
Mm.
Wow.
to be there, and so there was a big theater. I'd never seen it in theater. I'd only seen it on television. I'd never seen it in a movie theater. And
Yeah.
so before the movie started, Margaret Hamilton was there, and one of the students said, "Would you please laugh?" And she said, "Yes." She'd been asked this before. She said, "Yes, I will laugh, but you all must close your eyes."
Oh,
So
nice.
all these people put their face down, and she cut loose with that Wicked Witch of the West laugh. And I'm
Hmm.
getting goosebumps right now because all of a sudden I could see with my eyes closed her on stage in that black outfit with that scarf blowing 50 feet long,
Yeah.
hat and everything. And then finally it rolled down and finally stopped. It's one of the more magical moments of my entire life. That it was breathtaking. But that was different than the movie. It would have been that'd be great if you could get her to come to the
But it's
sphere.
interesting. She knew that for it to the laugh to have the effect it should have, you can't be watching everything. You have to remove the visual.
Yeah, because she was 900 years old. It didn't
Yeah,
wasn't going to work.
right.
Yeah.
And she knew, yeah, you're exactly right, Mark.
Yeah,
She absolutely was in control of what she was doing, and she knew when the question was asked how best to deliver.
yeah,
But isn't
yeah.
that the magic
Amazing.
of seeing an amazing movie? That one little laugh can take you back in time to that entire film.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely. And it's a great movie. But I'd love to
yeah.
Yeah.
go to the Sphere and see whatever they're done with it. I think it'd be great fun.
Well, Derek's going.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I want to see. As soon as I saw it, I go, I got to see this because I remember when I went to Cosm the first time, which is sort of a mini sphere here in LA. We went to go see a Dodger game there, and I remember as soon as I walked in and I saw that screen and just the atmosphere, I go, this is the future of movies. This is where they're going to be seen because it's just becomes a whole different experience rather than just seeing it, and it doesn't take away. I mean, we went to go see What a Wonderful Life. It's a Wonderful Life in the movie theater. I'd never even seen the film before I saw it in the movie theater last year. And it was
Lucky you.
fantastic. It was fantastic. What a way to see that film.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Nothing like it.
So I think that
I
you can
just went to
have,
see, this is ridiculous because it's not a movie. I just went to see the Cat Video Fest at the local art house.
The Cat Video Fest?
Yeah,
What's
it's
that?
the guy's got like 90 minutes or 60 minutes of cat videos that he got off of YouTube or that people submitted to him. He does it every single year, and it's unbelievably
oh
funny.
my God, I
A
love that.
lot about physical comedy from watching one of them 2 years ago is how just by accident this cat does one step, two steps, three steps, and it gets this gigantic laugh out of a theater with a live audience. I thought, oh, I learned a little something. You can learn anything. You can learn something from every movie you see.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast today. So, Will, if people want to get a hold of you, they go to keytostorytelling.com, and that's where they can buy the course. They can reach you. They can get you to consult. They can get you to do script notes. They can get you to do anything.
Yes, mow their lawn if they pay me enough money.
Well,
Yeah.
Mark, you have anything to add?
I have one question.
Yeah.
Well, I have to have two. One question is, Will, there are a lot of people who've written a lot of stuff about screenwriting, a lot of books, as you know. It's a flooded market, which is good. There's a lot.
Hmm.
But you're a screenwriter still, I assume. You're still
Hmm.
writing. And not all the people who write about screenwriting are actually screenwriters.
That's correct.
And so I'm curious. So this puts you in a special category. You are a screenwriter first and
Hmm.
then started teaching, I'm assuming. What compelled you to move into this other field, this other pursuit of teaching and helping other people and not, away from yours? And how has that affected your screenwriting?
It's made me a better writer. I mean, the three things that I do, I teach beginning filmmakers and screenwriters, and then I consult, and I've done that for eons, and then I write myself. Those three things all wrap together. And so becoming a teacher, you get exposed to a lot more storytelling than if you're just in a room writing on your own and you see the mistakes that other people make and you see things that are really good and you get to see a lot of movies. And I just learned so much from my students
Hmm.
about writing. I mean, some of my students are better writers than I am, and so you learn from them. And but one of the great things about being a teacher is I have a network of former students who can give me notes on my work. So
Oh,
I
wow.
have readers who are unbelievably good
Wow,
helping me
nice.
out, and they were all my former students. So that's great. And consulting, again, all of it makes me a better writer. I'm a much better writer now because I taught. I'm a much better writer now because I've read lots and lots of screenplays and given people notes on them.
And do you think you're a better teacher because you continue to write?
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm in the agony just like they are.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I think writing is well, I don't think writing is fun, but I love doing it. But it's difficult, and so I can relate to whatever your problem is because I'm doing it and I'm having some variation of that exact problem.
Hmm.
But I think that's an important thing for people to take away, that even with all of your experience, you're a produced screenwriter, you've written for TV, you've written for film, you've taught, you've written books, you've done courses, is the fact that you still seek people to get feedback. You want to hear what they have to say. You want to know if your story is working. And I
Oh
think
my,
that
yes.
openness.
Oh my, yes. And you because your story, you're only going to get one shot at an
Yeah.
agent or a producer or whoever. If they say they're going to read it, they'll read it. My novel, just an example. A friend of mine knew someone in New York who's a publisher, and he called her and he pitched it to her, and she said, "Oh, I'd love to read that. It's about a horrible, horrible teacher and a really sweet little fifth grade boy." And so she was going to read it, and I knew that she would read it. Well, that she could say yes because it was her company. So she could, I was going to go to someone who could say yes. Most people can say no all the way up the food chain until you finally can
Hmm.
get somebody to say, "I want to get it on the first go." And so I emailed her and I said, "Hey, I'm working on the book. I'm the guy. Please, I'm looking forward to having you read it." She said, "Let me know when you're finished." 6 months later, I emailed her again. I said, "Hey, I'm the guy. I'm still working on it." So after I knew she would read it, and there's a chapter in my book called You Get Excited Because They Say They Want to Read It. I was excited that she would read it, but I was in no hurry to get it to her.
Yeah.
So this after the first 6 months, I emailed her and I said, "Hey, I'm still here. I worked on it another 6 months." So from the time I knew she would read it until the time I sent it out to my last group of readers to read was a year. And
Wow.
I already had a draft at the beginning of that year. But
Yeah.
again, she could say yes. And so I was talking about my readers. I sent it out to my absolute number one reader who halfway through the process, she gave me like 6 single-space pages of notes on what to do.
Wow.
It took me weeks and weeks and weeks to fix. That Thursday, she called me and she said she sent me about an inch of notes. It took me an hour to fix. And she said, and so when she was done, I was done. I emailed it to the publisher that day, and she bought it 3 days later. And they said to
Wow.
me, I'm very proud of, they had almost no notes. They asked me,
Wow.
they didn't change anything in the first part of the book, and they asked me to rewrite the order that things happened in the final chapter. And the editor said, "Rarely do we see something that's this ready to go."
Wow.
Wow.
I knew she'd read it, and I knew I only had one shot at it. And I think that's a very important lesson for everyone to know is you get your screenplay as good as it can be
Yeah.
and then give it to them. And then because you can't hand it to them and say, there's stuff wrong with Act Two, but please read it.
Yeah. Which you hear a
Yeah.
lot. A lot of people do that.
Yeah. I think that that's a great story, Will. I know we're coming near the end. It's a great story, but I just want to make a couple of notes about that. One is this publisher who said who heard somebody else pitch it. You didn't pitch it. Somebody else pitched it. She said, "I'd like to read it." You say, "Okay, well, that's one toe over the threshold." You're
Well, the
getting
thing,
closer.
what the lesson there is, the really important lesson is my log line was so clear that someone who was
Yeah.
not me could say what my movie was about or
Aha.
my novel was about,
Yeah.
and then this other person would go, "Oh, I get it." So someone else could pitch my idea as successfully
Yeah.
if me. That's really important.
I love that. Yeah.
Second part of what I'm experiencing from this, which is very valuable, is you have this woman, this publisher who wants to read this story that she's heard about, pitched. You stay in touch with, you get in touch with her, you stay in touch with her and let her know that you're still working.
Hmm.
You don't just disappear because
Yeah.
then it would have gone away, but you don't send it prematurely. I think that's what I'm getting from it. Hey, it's 6 months later. I just want you to know I'm still working on it. Which my guess is she, as a publisher, said, "Great, keep working on it. Don't." She's probably thinking, "Don't send it until you're ready." She's
Right.
thinking that, probably not saying it. Third part of this is you're not less. The third lesson here. Don't. I'm sort of quoting you. Don't trust yourself for when it's ready. You're sending it out to all these people, and you said, "I've got
Hmm.
this number one person who's giving me 6 pages and then a half a page." In other words, you're trusting the people who are vetting or who are reading it for you and giving you that response, even though you may think, "I think I'm ready, but I have to check with others."
It's
Yeah.
people that are really great writers want notes
Yeah.
because they want to bounce it off of somebody. The guy that wrote Passion of the Christ, which at the time was the most successful independent film ever made, he he was a friend of mine, and he sent me the sequel to read and give him notes on. I mean, he's like he wrote a screenplay for John Huston. He was an amazing, amazing talent. And
Hmm.
so I called him. I'd finished reading the sequel, and I called him, and he said, and I could hear it in his voice. He said, "What'd you think?" And he was nervous. This guy's like the best writer I've ever met, and he was worried about what I was going to think because he wanted my opinion, and he was afraid I might not like it. So everybody needs
Wait,
notes,
wait, it was the
and
sequel to The Crucifixion?
the sequel to it was about the story of Mary.
Oh, okay. Now I got you.
It was a sequel, and it was all about Jesus's mother.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, but it was great to hear this guy want notes. Best
Yeah.
writer I ever met. He wanted notes.
Wow.
Yeah, great.
That's great. The wisdom of the great Will Akers.
Yeah.
How great is this?
And it gets back to William Goldman. Nobody knows anything. We don't know, his wisdom of like, this is a total mystery of what we're doing that he even admits that he doesn't know what he's doing. Um, but that's a great story. Well,
Yeah.
both of those stories are great.
Yeah.
So now this novel that you've written is being
Hmm?
published now.
No, it's about 10 years old now.
It's
It's
been,
called
yeah.
Mrs. Ravenbach's Way is
Oh,
the name of
that
the book.
yeah, yeah,
That's
great
And
great.
I had
story.
a
Mark,
good time writing it. So that was
Mark, you
fun.
have anything else to add?
But I think that's it. This has been a real pleasure meeting you again, and talking again. Now we all have to go to Nashville. Oh, you have to come. No, you can all come to Hawaii. That's fine.
That
Yeah.
would be a pleasure. Hold on,
Well,
I'll get my hat.
Will, it's great to see you as always. I'm so happy to hear everything you're doing. I love, go to
Thank
key
you.
to storytelling.com, check out the great Will Akers, and you will definitely elevate your writing. Your Screenplay Sucks, his best-selling book. How many printings has that? That thing must have had 100 printings by now. I mean, so many people I know have talked about it and love that
It's
book,
still popular, which is wonderful.
which is fantastic. Fantastic. Now, are you going to do anything else? Are you think about writing another book or no?
I've got another novel that I've got tucked away that I'm working on.
Okay,
I'm not
very
going to
cool.
write
Nice.
another screenwriting book because I can make more money this way selling screenwriting courses.
I love that Will is so pragmatic about this. I love that.
I love it.
I got to
Why
buy
don't you do that?
gasoline
I
and
did
I
it for
got
the
to buy
money.
groceries.
Yeah,
Yep.
well, yeah. There you go. There you go. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. For Mark Travis, I'm Derek Christopher, and thank the great Will Akers for
Thank
joining us.
you.
Will, it was a pleasure, and
Thank you
we'll
very
hopefully have
much.
you back soon. And we'll see you guys soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.